Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April 7th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by managing editor Matt Shodell as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, I think we'll start off today talking about how the time is now for Miami to keep fishing in the transfer portal for some new players. And it's obviously a huge topic of conversation on the message boards and among the fan base. And I'm sure it's creating some anxious moments for players and their parents that are on the current team because, there's only so many spots on the roster. And if obviously you're going to keep bringing in new players here after spring practice, some guys are going to have to go. And, I guess from a coach's standpoint, you like guys to feel like they are competing for spots. It helps you make your football team better, but there's no question that it creates some anxiety as well. So, it begins with a big guy that was on campus yesterday who will be returning for practice this morning, and that is a defensive end from Jacksonville State, of all programs, by the name of DJ Coleman. And we're still trying to figure out if he's going to get offered. It's not a guarantee. This is kind of like an exploratory visit from both sides, I guess would be the best way to categorize it. And then over the weekend, Matt, they're going to get a visit from another defensive lineman, a kid from West Virginia with a little bit better credentials even than DJ Coleman, and that's Akeem Messidor. So that's 2 defensive line transfers that are going to be on campus here over a course of a 3-4 day period of time. Do you think the guys up front on the defensive side of the ball are maybe getting a little bit of a message here?
Well, what we've been talking about, right, is the most effective defensive ends so far this spring have been Cyrus Moss and Thomas Davis from everything we've been hearing. And they're small. I want to say small. Cyrus Moss is 6'6", but they're thin, light, not physical, not guys who are going to set the edge. They're, maybe pass rushers right now who can get their, Cyrus Moss can get his hands up in the passing lanes. They're not dominating physical defensive ends. And Mario Cristobal wants dominating physical defensive ends. And when you look at these 2 transfers they're bringing in, I don't have it right in front of me. I think one of them is 6'3", maybe 260, Messidor, and I think the one we just wrote about, DJ, is 6 foot. I'm going to look it up real quick. Oh, he's 6'5", 260.
Right.
These are bigger, more physical defensive ends who are multi-purpose. They're not the quote-unquote third down pass rush type bodies. These are every down defensive ends, and there's a major deficiency at defensive line. I think if Mario had his druthers, is that still a word we can say? If Mario had his druthers,
yeah,
he'd also be bringing in linebackers left and right. The issue, again, I'll keep bringing it up just because I enjoy talking about numbers because I'm a mathematician at heart, I guess. But look, right now, by our estimate, before bringing any more transfers, they're at 89 on the roster limit. They have to be at 85 by the time fall practice begins, and they have 8 graduating seniors. If you do the math, a year from now, if nobody leaves, and people are going to leave, okay? Obviously, people are going to leave. They have to be at 85. So they're going to be at 85. They're not going to be at less than 85 unless there's a mass exodus for some bizarre reason. I don't see any reason why Mario would want to kick kids off the team to be under 85 for the season. It just doesn't make any sense. You can get rid of them whenever you want after the season and then bring in as many recruits as you want. But the point being, we'll assume they're going to be at 85 come August 3rd, 4th, 5th, whenever they start practice. Then you graduate 8. Now you're at 78, using my amazing math skills. I'm sorry, 77. Amazing math skills. So you're at 77. You can take 8 recruits in the class of 2023, including transfers. Amazing. They don't need more than that. So obviously I'm being facetious. The point is, after the season, between that season and the next season, you probably have to jettison 20 kids off the roster to take at that point, if you jettison 20, you could take 28, and that's 25 recruits and 3 transfers, which is fair. I think that's probably about what they'll do. So 20 players who are eligible to return in 2023 on the current roster right now will not be on that team if Mario wants to take a full recruiting class, which I'm sure he does.
Well, and
so,
before like people go, oh my God, let's point out Florida State has had 18 kids going through the transfer portal.
Right. Okay? That's what's going to happen a year from now.
This is the process right now, that the teams that feel they should be better, who are not happy with where their rosters are, that you got Mike Norvell, who came in for Willie Taggart and Jimbo Fisher. You've got Mario Cristobal, coming in for Manny Diaz. And listen, these guys are like, they're not paying Mario Cristobal $8 million to lose football games. And it's his job to manage the program and start getting this roster to a place where they can compete for what they're supposed to compete for, what everybody wants them to compete for.
Right. And
it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. There's going to be feelings hurt. I'm already seeing it. I mean, we're seeing it in some subtle messages that, appear to be being sent on the practice field, where, third and fourth team guys are not getting a lot of reps anymore and things like that. It's going to be obvious at the end of spring, and we'll be talking about it in the future. I mean, it's delicate right now. We don't want to embarrass anybody. We don't want to make people upset. We don't want to upset parents. This is a process that they're going to have to work through. But obviously, with transfers coming in, there's going to be guys going out. And so that'll be a situation to continue to monitor. But so, Matt, the obvious question, why? Why do they need transfers? Well, you just talked about how there's just not elite players on the defensive line right now. And I'll throw Jafari Harvey out there as a guy that's kind of like tried to step up a little bit this spring, has done better than he's done in the past. But when you look at him, when you look at Chance Williams, you look at like Matt said, Thomas Davis, Moss is very skinny. He has no thickness to him at all yet. He's a true freshman. He should be in high school right now. Maybe he can help you a little bit on some pass rush situations. Maybe they need help up front, and even a tackle. We talked about Mestador coming in this weekend. I mean, Leonard Taylor is trying to be a dude, but he hasn't been a dude yet. You don't really know what you're getting. Guys like Jordan Miller and these guys are journeyman kind of players. Like, you might get 10, 15 quality reps a game out of them, possibly, but they need more firepower. They need better quality. There is not a lot of elite impact talent on this roster. I've been saying it for years. And just the fact that you have a new coach come in a few months ago, it's not like turning on a light switch and suddenly that problem is solved. So there's a sense of urgency, Matt. I think we're seeing it. There's a steady stream of guys coming in, and now they're back on transfers coming in. And we really don't know yet what this roster is going to look like in August.
What's interesting to me is it's like the candy store. He's taken the gummy bears off one shelf, taking the Reese's peanut butter cups off the other shelf. He's taking the black licorice or whatever kind of licorice you like. That's the kind I like, off another shelf. So it's whatever he sees next is just the next thing in the candy store he puts his eyes on. He wants to bring it here. It doesn't seem like there's really a limit on what Mario Cristobal wants to bring. I mean, heck, they're bringing in a place kicker. That a USC transfer plays kicker this
I was going to
weekend.
Get into that. Yeah, I was about to get into that, but yeah, we'll talk more about that.
What program really keeps 2 scholarship kickers? It's not that common unless it's a senior and a freshman. Then you do it. But to have a young kicker and then another guy who you're bringing as a transfer, that's not that common. Anyway, the point being, it just seems like sort of whatever Mario sees, where he says this guy's better than what we got, or this guy's as good as what we got, and we need competition to that spot. He's like, whatever, man, we're doing it. We're bringing him in. He doesn't care. And he's going to hurt a lot of feelings at the end of the day. But you know what? He's not here to make friends, except with you and me when he wins games. That's it. He's here to make friends with you and me when he wins games. Other than that, if he makes Miami Northwestern upset by getting rid of one of their players who can't find a home, I mean, the player can't find a home because he wasn't good enough here. And if he can find another home that's at a good program, then the recruit won't be so upset. The former recruit, the transfer, won't be so upset anyway. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast right now. This is what it is. And if you're right now a Miami Hurricane, and if you're not consistently with the first and second team, and you're getting a lot of third team reps or even any third team reps, I'd be strongly considering trying to find a new home because I don't think you're going to make it for more than another year here. And then, unless you're very young, a true freshman, redshirt freshman.
And then, not helping things is Jared Harrison Hunt has been sidelined by some type of, I believe, like a foot infection or something. So that's kept him out of practice, and he's not out there. And, so the coaches are saying, man, we got to be better on the defensive line. And they're out there attacking it. They're looking at different prospects in the portal. And we'll see if any of them turn into commitments and signees. But there's a reason why, and it makes a lot of sense. And Matt, that leads me to what you just mentioned. And there's also a transfer kicker that will be coming in this weekend by the name of Parker Lewis from USC. And your initial thought might be a kicker. Andres Borregales is the kicker. Why would you need to bring in another kicker? I'll tell you why. Andres Borregales is still physically developing as in terms of leg strength and stuff. And his kickoffs were not always deep and out of the end zone the way teams want it today, so they don't have to cover kickoffs. And I haven't done a deep dive into Parker Lewis, but I'm assuming if he's coming in here on a visit as a transfer, he's got a leg. And I believe the coaches are looking for somebody, whether Parker Lewis can beat Andres Borregales out or not as the place kicker. They're looking for somebody that's going to kick the damn ball out of the end zone on a almost every single time basis. And that would be why Parker Lewis might get a look this weekend as a transfer kicker.
Parker Lewis was 17 for 22 field goals last season, and he's got a kickoff leg. I honestly think if Miami takes him, I'm not sure how much longer Andres Borregales lasts because, again, they're going to be not needing to keep a lot of numbers here. They are not going to want to keep a guy who's just not going to play. And Andres Borregales won't want to be here if he's going to be a backup. He's really good. I don't quite get it. This USC kid's not coming in to be a kickoff specialist, okay? That is not why he's transferring to wherever he's transferring to. He wants to be the field goal kicker. And if Miami says to him, listen, we've got Andres Borregales handling field goals, but he's not good enough for the kickoffs. You can do the kickoffs. He's not coming here. He's going to need assurances. You're a field goal guy. You're a kickoff guy. You're better than what we got. And the fact of bringing him in for an official visit, if I'm Andy Borregales, I'm a little concerned right now. Mustache or no mustache?
I'm trying to do some quick research here on Parker Lewis and exactly why he's in the portal. I mean, like you said, he was 17 of 22 last year. This was a decent kicker. He's been with USC for 2 years. Hit all 23 of his extra point attempts and had touchbacks on 22 of his 38 kickoffs. Now, to me, 22 of 38 is not that spectacular. But we'd have to try to figure out what Andres Borregales' stat is. I don't have that in front of me. But the bottom line is the reason he would be being brought in is because of his leg and the fact that now going into year 3 as a college kicker.
I've got Andy Borregales' numbers. You ready?
Yeah.
He did 82 kickoffs.
Yep.
37 touchbacks.
Okay, see, that's not good enough. That's not close to good enough. So that's why Parker Lewis is visiting this weekend. So anyway, so the point is that on a daily basis here, we're seeing a maniacal effort to make this roster better, make this program better. And it's not going to stop. And yeah, it's creating some discomfort. And I don't think anybody's going to apologize for that. So it'll be interesting to continue to monitor this day after day after day, especially after spring practice ends. And I imagine there'll be, some deep evals and some serious conversations with 10 to 20 guys that are in the locker room right now that might be told, like, you don't have a future here. You should transfer. You should go into the portal. You should graduate. You've had enough time. We need, you should get to graduation and make sure you take what you got to take this summer in summer A or whatever to finish out your degree, so you can move on because you're not going to have a scholarship here next year.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's not easy also, but you're basically firing a player, right? When our children were younger, we had a nanny who would look after them because I had to work for CaneSport. My wife had a job. and I had to fire a couple of nannies. And I'm really bad at firing. I don't know how Mark Crystal is going to break the news to these players because it's hard, man. One of them, I just tried to be so nice about it that she thought I was just telling her to go take a rest in her room, and I hadn't actually fired her. So good luck, Mario. Don't bring me in to try and fire people from the football team because they'll just think they got a promotion to the first team by the time I'm done with them.
All right, so Miami is going to be returning to the practice field later this morning, and we will obviously have complete coverage of that on the website later this morning. And the time is now for these guys, and practices are running short. You got one more practice this week, 3 more next week, so a total of 4 more practices left this spring for players to impress the coaches and secure their spot on the roster for the 2022 season. So. I imagine the intensity will be amped up. We've seen it grow with each practice this spring. The juice, the tempo on the field, the intensity behind the coaching that's going on. It's been progressively getting greater with each practice this spring. I would think this last week it's going to be fire. It's going to be lit out there. That's my expectation, and we'll have coverage of today's practice on the website for you later this morning. All right, couple other things on the website this morning to touch on here. Miami, we got updates on a couple guys that have been coming and trying to get offers from the Miami coaches. One of them is a 2024 quarterback, Prentice Nolan. He visited Miami last week, has the Canes high up on his list, and is waiting to see if he will get an offer. And Matt, it's early. There's no reason to rush into 2024 quarterback offers right now. You need time to properly evaluate the landscape. You're going to be wanting to recruit the top quarterbacks in the country every year. But Prentice Nolan did come down to get a little bit of a head start in building a relationship with the Miami coaches.
Yeah, and I should also mention, Cedric Baxter told us yesterday he's coming today, so that'll be a huge visit. If they can get him, that running back room is going to be stacked in the future. But yeah, it's funny. God forbid we write stories on 2024 or 2025 recruits. People on the message boards freak out. Why are you writing about this guy?
It's because we can walk and chew gum.
Yeah, he visited. He had a great time. It's a good story. Both these stories this morning, I think, are good stories. One of them's an Indiana commitment who I think it's very telling. William Larkins is the other story we have up this morning before practice. Last time we did a couple of stories like this, somebody said, must be a slow news day. We're talking about 2025 recruiting. And I responded, well, listen, if you wait an hour, we're going to have 6 stories on practice.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not like, right.
It's just like it's like the appetizer, man. This is the, I don't know.
Can't please that. We definitely can't please everybody.
Exactly, right? So anyway.
But we can walk and chew gum. We can write about recruits for multiple years at the same time.
Yeah. But the point being, these stories are interesting. And I find one of the more interesting stories is the William Larkins story, right? Because he's committed to Indiana. He's not a highly recruited guy. He's a 3-star, but he's from Chaminade Madonna, which has some pipelines. And Miami's recruiting him as hard as if he has an offer, even though they have not offered.
He's a big kid. He's just he's got a big body.
Yeah, but my point is Alex Mirabal in the class of 2023, and this is a 2023 recruit. He's offered probably 50 guys, okay? So maybe William Larkins is 60th on his list, okay? But William Larkins doesn't feel that way. And that's what's so interesting about this story, because in the past, if you were 60th on the list under he who can't be named, under Randy Shannon, under even Mark Richt, under, who am I missing? Al Golden, whoever. Those guys were not hearing from you. There were people 10th on the list who were not hearing from coaches at all until they moved up into the top 5 on the list. And then all of a sudden, I'm so sorry you haven't heard from us in the last 2 months. So-and-so screwed up. We love you. We need you so bad. This guy's 60th on the list, and he's talking to Alex Mirabal all the time.
Well, he's a big kid. Probably, Miami would be a dream offer for him. I watched him at a camp a couple weeks ago. Very raw, very, very raw.
Right, but the point is Miami recruits everybody. That's what you need to do to be successful as a program.
Because maybe he develops in the next 6 months.
Correct. You don't know. Offensive lineman develops.
He looks like a monster. He's huge.
I remember Art Kehoe hated giving out early offers because his whole thing was, offensive line bodies don't develop until their senior year. Now, that's why Art Kehoe didn't take a lot of 5 stars. He was getting 2 stars and 3 stars and turning them into sometimes 4 and 5 stars. But that was his whole philosophy, because that's what happened to him, right? He was in high school. He was a little guy. Nobody wanted him. And then all of a sudden, his senior year, he developed physically, and Miami obviously said, hey, you got a spot here. And that's what he kept looking for. He was looking for Art Kehoe's to bring into college, but he found a lot of them that other schools passed over because they filled up early, and Art Kehoe would say, no, I'm waiting to see senior film, man, because some guys get worse, and then some guys just explode onto the scene. And he was a pretty successful college coach, I would argue. You know, I know people had issues with him the last few years he coached, but in general, I think he was a very successful offensive line coach over his tenure here.
All right, so we talked about Nolan, we talked about Larkins being real raw, a guy that, like Matt said, mirror balls, just working the bases with. You don't know how he's going to develop in the next 6 months to a year, and so it makes sense to have the relationship. All right, before we go, let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet.
We here at LifeWallet take security very seriously. Our data security team is working constantly to make sure that your data is not accessed by anybody who you don't authorize.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah,
Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
I have talked to CC, and he's thinking about it, and I'll be talking to CC. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We use leading technology standards like biometric data to make sure that only you have access to your data and your identity is protected. LifeWallet gives you access to your entire medical history and information at the touch of your finger, so that it can save you time and can save your life.
Data transfer complete.
All right, so the Canes are going to return to Green Tree practice field this morning, like we said. And Matt,
Guess who's talking after practice?
who?
Mario Cristobal. He hasn't talked since practice 6.
Oh, I should have known that's what you were excited about.
Very excited.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Mario says. But if you were to say the 3 things that Miami has to get accomplished here in the last 4 spring practices, what would you say?
3 things they need to get accomplished. I just think they need better food for reporters. That's the first thing, for sure. There's really nothing for us out there. They don't even let us drink the Gatorade. That's by far the most important. Food for reporters, drink for reporters. It's hot out there, man. It's getting up to 90 degrees now out there on Green Tree. Second thing, I think they should have the reporters have a better vantage point of practice. They keep putting the offensive linemen and defensive linemen on the far side of the field. It's an important position, man. Like, don't just let us see the receivers and the quarterbacks and the DBs, man. Don't leave those big guys out. So let us watch those guys a little more. And then I'd say number 3, let us watch the whole practice. What are you hiding? No, but seriously, if I had to say 3 things that I think are important, I still want to see somebody emerge at receiver these last 2 scrimmages. I haven't seen it. I would like to see Frank Ladson in particular step up, because I already know what some of these other guys can do. When you look at Frank Ladson, and a lot of fans haven't sort of seen him up close and personal, but man, he looks like an NFL receiver. He's got to just show it now. Along the same lines, I think the offensive flow has to be better. Just look more in sync from what we've seen, right? They're a little slow in understanding what they're doing. By this point, that really shouldn't be the case. It's a little worrisome if in his last 4 practices, if they're still going, 3/4, 4/5 speed, they should be able to go pretty fast by now. I think they should understand at least 50 or 60% of the playbook, and those plays at least be running super fast. We haven't seen that yet. And then number 3, the most important thing to me, I would like to see some other defensive linemen step up, because you can tell Mario Cristobal is not happy on defensive line when he just keeps bringing in every single transfer he can find at defensive line. And that just makes it all the more important to me. I don't want to rely on transfers, man. I just don't. That's not my thing. I want to see players on the team step up. I want to see Leonard Taylor prove, hey, I'm a first teamer, man. Put me back on that first team, right? I want to see maybe even a Jacob Lichtenstein make an impact. He hasn't done anything that I've seen to this point. He just looks like he's tall and doesn't really have that oomph yet. I'd like to see him make an impact. Maybe get to the quarterback, ask the quarterback a little bit, make some tackles, whatever. Just a big picture just across the defensive line board. I want to see those guys step up, especially against an offensive line that I'm not sure is great. That's not a great sign if they're not dominating. I'd like to see that front four, front seven be as good as that back, the defensive backs.
The a number one receiver emerging, I'm not sure that's going to happen, Matt. We've watched 11 practices now. I mean, to me, Xavier Restrepo is far and away the most consistent, most polished guy out there on the field. Other guys have moments. Jacoby George has moments. Frank Latson has moments, but nothing consistent, nothing that's like causing anybody to say, "Oh my God."
Well, listen, we're going to see the spring game, right? Remember last year in the spring game, you could see Charleston Rambo was going to be a dude. We're going to see something at some point, whether it's in the spring game or something we hear out of the next scrimmage, where this guy has emerged. Charleston Rambo wasn't great in the first spring.
It's going to be Restrepo catching a lot of balls. That's
whatever it is.
That's my prediction.
Charleston Rambo wasn't great at the beginning of spring either, but by the middle of spring, he was asserting himself. Yeah. And we're in the second third of spring practice here, and I think it can happen. I still think it can happen because I'm optimistic, Gary. I'm not a pessimist like you. I'm not a hater like Gary Ferman.
Too, but I'm not Mr. Negative. I'm also realistic. I'm not sure that there's a number one receiver on the team, and I think they're going to be looking in the portal for one of those two. And what I'm wondering about, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this Ajay Hall kid from Alabama that mysteriously was taken off Alabama's roster. I wonder what he did, and was it bad enough to keep Miami from looking into him in the transfer portal? Because he's a guy that they thought was going to be great at Bama going into last year, had a so-so season, didn't really get a lot done, and now they've taken him off the roster, which means they are having some issues with him. But maybe that's the wake-up call that he needs. Maybe they give him a chance to come to Miami and right his ship. I'm just speculating right now. It's something that that we have to wait and see. But that's the kind of talent that I think they're going to be looking for. A guy with the potential to come in and make the room better, to be what Charleston Rambo was last year. So we'll see what happens there. But right now, I'm not convinced, Matt, that a true number one receiver is really going to emerge. I see Restrepo as more like a number two possession guy. But we'll see what happens there. And in terms of what you mentioned with the offensive efficiency, what's been going on there is the installs that have been taking place have been very intense. A lot has been thrown at these kids. It's got their heads spinning. I don't know. I'm assuming it's by design. Josh Gaddis has just thrown a lot of offense at them here in the last week or so. And the kids aren't playing at a full speed because they're thinking a lot. And maybe this week, down to the end of this week and into next week with 4 practices left, maybe that starts to come together a little bit. So that'll be something that we'll be keeping our eyes on here in the coming days. As far as other things that I would like to see, I want to see some depth established on the offensive line. I think they feel pretty good about the top 6 right now that that they're working with. But I think that needs to get into a 7, 8, 9. I don't know if 10 is reality, but a second team that can be counted on to go into games needs to be developed, beyond the guys that are battling right now for the right guard and right tackle spots over there. So we'll see what happens there. That's one thing I would throw out. Obviously, we want a pecking order at linebacker. We will, everyone knows that's not a position of strength right now, but that doesn't mean that the guys that are there can't be getting better and can't be responding to the coaching they're getting from a guy that's been a head coach for over a decade in Charlie Strong. They should be getting to be about as good as they can get with that type of coaching. And, I wanted to try to see a pecking order start to get established there. Maybe see if a Wesley Besainth can get good enough here in the next 4 or 5 months to play a lot this fall. And as much as anything, I want to see them. I don't know if this is reality or not, but I want to see them get the best 11 guys on the field on defense. And, like we've talked about this, like for example, James Williams wants to be a free safety. I don't see that changing right now. I don't see them moving him down into the box and putting him at linebacker or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that isn't what would be the best thing for this football team when you factor in Avonte Williams, Cam Kinchens, and Brian Ballum all sitting there capable of playing at the safety position. And two of those guys are going to be on the sidelines at all times. And I'm not sure that what's on the field in front of them is as good as what those guys are. And I personally would want to see those guys on the field as much as possible, no matter how Kevin Steele needs to scheme it up. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, there's some political things at play and feelings and all that. So, that's why the coaches make the big bucks. They'll work through all that, and we'll see what happens there. All right, so that's going to do it for Good Morning CaneSport for today. Like I said, we'll be heading out to practice. We'll have all those reports for you coming up later this morning on the website. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow on this show, and have a great day, everybody.